Ba-ba-doo bop bop da bop bang. Ba-ba-doo bop bop da bop boom. That is, well, at the ashram, each evening you sing bhajans. And bhajans are devotional songs of praise, or you actually, most of the time people don't even know what the words are. It's just singing. And that one is my favorite one. And speaking of, when it comes to what we're doing, sometimes it isn't even important to know the words that we're singing, especially if it's like those, which that's ancient Sanskrit, or if you're reciting more modern Sanskrit. Even if you don't know what the words are, it can still be an incredibly beautiful devotional practice to orient to the higher, to the supreme. In fact, this is unintended, but quite related to the topic for today, which is on brilliant knowledge bomb that I've heard Swami say maybe 50 times, and that is, it's not what you do, it's what you do it for. Or sometimes he'll say it's not what you do, it's how you do it. It's not what you do, it's what you do it for. Here on Friday mornings, here at the Venice Vedanta Club, we'll go over one of the texts, or we'll go over one of the episodes of the conversational podcast that I also host with my teacher, Joseph, called Yoga for Your Intellect. If you want to check that out, it's podcasts just like this one, YouTube and every other platform. But they are longer form conversations between Joseph and myself, and I'm peppering him with questions, or we're just talking about different topics. And I'd say once every 2 weeks, someone asks about some action, whether it's the right action or the wrong action, or what does Vedanta view on this action? Can you do this? Should you pursue X, Y, Z in your professional life? Or should you get married? Or should you have a fourth kid? Or it could be, should I quit my job and pursue art? Should I start a startup? These questions come up frequently. Like I said, every other week, someone asks about a fork in the road in their life. And if I could write two things on a rock, that would be the whole philosophy in two phrases and two ideas, the whole method of getting past all of our blindness to seeing clearly. And I have to remind myself of these often as well. So I really should create the rock because I need it myself. But if there were two things that I found myself talking about the most with people, one is that you can always refer to the dream. When it comes to Maya, or the concept of this whole experience of the universe being a projection of your mind, a really heady concept, but also one of the oldest concepts within humanity. And you see it across different cultures, from Plato's allegory of the cave to this Vedantic idea that we are projecting this entire experience. When people ask about that, or try to call out the absurdness of that, the example you could always point to is the dream. So much so that Swami has said before, if you can understand the absurdness of the dream experience, you don't need any of the philosophy or any of the books. You can always refer back to the dream experience. So whenever you have questions regarding the potential, you can also just leave this concept on the shelf. Vedanta is like a buffet. You can just take and leave whatever is not useful for you. But if you ever are questioning, is this real? This has to be real, but why do they keep saying this isn't real? This table feels real, but is there a chance that I'm misperceiving reality? Well, Vedanta and this ancient, timeless philosophy says that we are. You can just go back to the dream where we misperceive. We think there is a ground, or there are people with clothes and shoes and gravity and walls. Everything feels real, and yet you wake up and 5 seconds later, you realize how ill-advised it is to just trust our perceptions as the arbiter of what's real, because 5 seconds prior, our perceptions told us this completely illusory universe was real in our dream, complete with other people, drama, not knowing what was going to happen. And this philosophy says the exact same thing is happening. This is an elevated version of the dream in this waking state. So that's the first thing that would go on the rock. The second thing that would go on the rock, that is just a reference point that you can go to over and over and over again. And it's when we are in these forks in the road, that it's not what you do, it's what you do it for. Should you play music? Should you pick up a hobby? Should you go to your 5-year-old's performance at the school and miss some work? Over and over and over again, we think there's virtue inherent in an action. But what this philosophy says, over and over and over again, to try to unwind our thinking when it comes to that, is that it is not what you do, it's what you do it for. If you're going to that 5-year-old's performance just to check a box as a parent, and you're thinking about work the whole time, it's not towards this higher duty that you feel for your child or your spouse that wants you to be there, and you go with this emotional kicking and screaming. Well, you're checking the box, but you're creating further separation from those around you instead of harmony. Selfishness festers within us. Same thing can be said for, should you get married? Should you start that startup? Well, if starting that startup is, I'm going to build this company, it could be a nonprofit. Oh, I saw this so often in the nonprofit realm. My undergrad degree is in development economics, and I worked on the ground in poverty alleviation in South Africa, worked with nonprofits, fundraised for several nonprofits, built a startup that fundraised for nonprofits, for thousands of nonprofits around the world. And I saw it over and over and over again. People would be as egoistically involved as a rock star up on a stage. They just were going for a savvy, maybe more noble version of status. So let's say you have an idea for a nonprofit. You want to give back. On the face of it, it sounds noble. But are you doing it to gain some status that'll outshine just professional career milestones, to where you're seen in your neighborhood, your family, your circle as the selfless one? Is it a project like the Daily Vedantic, where recognize, man, this could be made so much more accessible in a modern way across all of these social platforms that don't seem to have a really simple on-ramp to this philosophy? Well, it can start noble. And as Swami told me one time, you could be a devil in an ashram or a monk in the boardroom. It doesn't matter where you are or what you're doing. You could take that further and say, in that vein, you could be a devil starting a nonprofit that you think is going to get all kinds of pats on the back. Or you could be a monk, a saint, that's running a company that might make tiny little widgets that go on fences and make fences more secure. It might be a tea company. You might recognize, you know what? I don't need to start something to get status. I'm going to love my children. And I'm going to cultivate the proper dynamic at home that gives them the best shot, happiness and harmony in their lives. Abdicating any status whatsoever or any type of career milestones that maybe you previously were enchanted by. It's not what you do, it's what you do it for. And it is a reference point. This knowledge bomb is a reference that we can go back to over and over and over again. From brushing our teeth and deciding whether we should floss or not, to all the way to whether you should start a life-changing company that's going to shift and pivot you and your family's lives for years to come. It's equally applicable. That's today's reflection on the Daily Vedantic. We'll see you next time.